Hello, everybody. It is Mike Young with Mike Young Real Estate, back for another video. I'm trying to do these once a week where I present something to you that is valuable to you and hopefully something that you'll learn about buying and selling property in North Carolina, specifically around the Triangle region. And before we start this video, let me also mention, please join our groups if you're not in them already. You may be watching this on our YouTube channel, which you can wonder. It would be awesome if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go type in Mike Young Real Estate in YouTube. You'll find us there. You can subscribe. Or our community groups are Wake Forest Community Information, which is at wfci.one. That group has like 53,000 members. And then Raleigh Community Information at rci.one. And that group has about 35,000 members. So we're getting close to 100,000 between those two groups, which is really awesome. Wake Forest Community Information, just so you know, you can only join as an individual. And Raleigh Community Information, you can join as either an individual or your Facebook page. So either one works. Today, you can see from all the money behind me, see all the dollar bills. No, that's more than dollars, it's 20s, 50s, and hundreds behind me. We are talking about money as involved, cash money as it's involved in real estate contracts in North Carolina. And my most recent video, if you haven't seen it, wherever you're watching this, go ahead and click back and view some of the history, because you will see the video there. It was on due diligence, which involves not only money, but also your due diligence time frame with which you can back out of the contract. It's just an option to buy, basically, and it's all explained in that video if you want to learn more. Or if you're on the YouTube channel, just type in Mike Young Real Estate Due Diligence, and you'll find the video there. But today we're talking about earnest money deposits, or EMD. You guys familiar with EMDs, money? Well, this is just cash money. It's not like due diligence. It doesn't grant you any rights necessarily, except for the fact that hopefully it's convincing enough to the seller for them to have you go under contract in your offer. And all of these different things with earnest money are presented in the North Carolina offer to purchase and contract. And again, just like this last video that I did, don't think of this as a fully comprehensive, we cover everything type of a video, because it's not. There are almost an unlimited number of ways that you can handle a real estate transaction, which is why it's so important that you have a realtor on your side, someone with experience. There's absolutely no substitute for experience. And just so you know, I have been a licensed realtor since 2006. So I've got quite a bit of experience, and that really will benefit you and provide you a tremendous value as a client of mine. And let's get right into the video now. Let's talk about earnest money deposits. Let's pull out the contract, because this is what everything is based on. In North Carolina, if you're buying residential property, it's going to be the same. Here you go, the offer to purchasing contract. See, 1, terms and conditions, and right below that is purchase price. And that is where we're going to be learning about the earnest money, because purchase price, you can see there's a couple things. There is the second line there is by due diligence fee. The first line is the actual price that you're going to pay for this property. And the third line is initial earnest money deposit. And the fourth line is additional earnest money deposit. So as you can see, there are a couple different ways to go here. And it depends on what you're trying to get out of this transaction and how much of a buyer or seller's market there is. All right, but just take a look at that. I'm going to drop this contract off of here in a second. I just want you, I'll bring it back, but take a look for the last couple seconds here. So you can see additional, there's different ways to bring that money. And, oh, sorry, there's only one way. It says, well, actually, it doesn't, you don't stipulate an additional way. In the original one, you stipulate how you're going to deliver the money and how soon. So let's talk about that. Earnest money. Now, if you are in a strong seller's market, which we are definitely in a strong seller's market right now, you're going to want to present the best offer as a buyer in order to acquire, any properties that you are looking at buying. So actually, look at my green screen over there. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm seeing something over here on my green screen. I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. I was losing my $100 bills over there in the corner. I got to get a little bit better with this. This is new for me anyway, the green screens. But you can see if the green goes away, then whatever has my background goes away. Now, back to what we were saying. If you are trying to entice a seller to sell their property to you, which is basically the market we're in right now, you want the strongest offer possible. So you're probably not going to necessarily want to use additional earnest money as a buyer. You're going to want to use initial earnest money, not additional. So you're going to only want to use that first of the 2 lines on the contract that I just showed you. And you're going to want to give as much money as possible. I would say typically historically over the time I've been an agent since 2006, a good rule of thumb is, if you combine the due diligence money, which again is in another video, and the earnest money, you want to be at about 1% of purchase price, meaning if you're buying a $200,000 property, you want to show them with about $2,000 worth of cash money in some way that you are really, really interested in buying this house. And as we will discuss in a future video, all properties in North Carolina are sold as is, believe it or not. That's the way the contracts are written. It's a very seller-friendly state, just as it's also a very landlord-friendly state. And there are differences in that between laws between different states, just as there are differences between buyers and sellers markets. Right now and historically, it's a seller's market, and not only that, but the contracts favor the sellers, as mentioned. So you want to demonstrate as a buyer to a seller that you are so interested in this property that you're probably not going to back out of it. That's the kind of market that we're in right now. And so you need to know a lot of things about a property that you're probably not necessarily going to know when you go under contract, but you do need to convey this to the seller in a way that they're not going to be worried that you're just going to walk away. So I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, you might want to give $4,000 money on a property that's maybe only worth $200,000. And then in another video, again, I'll talk about appraisals and financing and things, because it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to appraise for that. And you may be stuck making up the difference if you're buying a property that doesn't appraise, which can so easily happen and has been happening in this market. That's, again, a subject for another video. But this is basically the market that we're in, and you as a buyer are going to need to take away risk from the seller. You're going to need to convince that seller that you're not walking away. So let's say you're going to give $4,000. That's what we'd have to do in this kind of a market. I'd say let's give $4,000 initial earnest money on a property that's worth only $200,000. If you want to be competitive and you want to secure the home that you're interested in, that's pretty much what you have to do. Unfortunately, as a buyer, I'm sorry to have to convey this as a realtor to a buyer, but this is just the way that it is. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting a lot of time, and you'll end up with nothing, because there's many, many buyers out there right now that have missed out on properties, multiple properties, over and over and over again. And there are other tools for that, which I have, such as escalation clauses and things, which we can get into in future videos as well, and we will get into them. However, let's talk about what happens with earnest money, because just because you give it doesn't mean it's gone. It's not like due diligence money. If you remember, due diligence money, the second you hand it over, it's gone, and you're not going to get it back. So even if you have very little or even a lot of earnest money, what really will sway a seller in today's market is large amounts of due diligence, because there's no chance of you getting due diligence money back unless or until you go to settlement. Earnest money, however, is different. Earnest money is always held by a third party. In almost all circumstances, it's held by an attorney's office. And in almost every case, the buyer is the one who chooses the attorney. So that it gives the buyer a little bit of consolation there that they're not going to get, they're not throwing the money away, because they're giving it to their own attorney in almost every case. Not to say that the buyers don't give up their rights to do that, because buyers have, and they do give up their rights to do that. And not usually, but you never know. In a situation like this, in a seller's market, a seller could say, hey, by the way, if someone's talking to a seller's agent, the seller might want to potentially, use this attorney. They're doing another settlement with them, or who knows what. Sellers can't demand any of that, but buyers will do what they need to do in most cases in order to win a property that a buyer really wants to get. However, let's get back into when and if and how an earnest money deposit is refundable to someone who's a buyer. Now, I would say that in most cases, although not all, in most every case, if a buyer is to terminate their contract within the due diligence time frame, it's typically about 3 weeks if you have one, because in today's market, you may not even have one. You may give money, but not even just have it for 1 day or something. If the contract is terminated within the due diligence period, and of course, due diligence is an option to buy, so they can just say, oh, I'm exercising my option and I'm not going to buy this home. Well, the way you get earnest money returned to you or given to anyone, whether it's buyer or seller, is if all parties agree. So if all parties agree, the seller says, oh, well, yeah, you gave me this due diligence money, which was probably a lot, and you terminated the contract, which you had the right to. okay, fine, here, you can have your earnest money deposit back. And in most cases, they will. And all that's required is some type of a written document from both parties over to the third party, which is usually the attorney who's holding the money, and then the attorney will release. In lieu, and unless there is that written documentation from both parties, in lieu of that, you're going to have to go to court. A judge is going to have to determine where that money is going, who's going to get it. That's the only way that the money will be released, if it's released. Because if a judge doesn't decide and if parties don't agree, it could stay there indefinitely. So this is a huge difference between due diligence money and earnest money. And there can be a lot of uncertainty. But like I said, as long as a contract is canceled within the due diligence time frame, in almost every case I've ever seen, the money is returned to the buyer. The earnest money is returned, whether it's initial or if it's additional. Either way, I've almost always seen it returned. Not to say that will happen in every case, because as I keep talking about, there are unlimited possibilities with real estate. And it is possible that a seller will say, oh no, you're not getting that money back. And you're gonna have to go to court and force somebody to give it to you, which is the judge. And a lot of times these could be expensive court battles. It could be nothing. You may not even need an attorney to go to court. You just plead your case and the judge will decide who gets the money. So that's how earnest money is returned. And if it's outside the due diligence time frame, though, that's a lot stronger of a case for a seller to keep that earnest money. All right, because the earnest money, again, is really something to protect the seller from the buyer walking away. And let's also discuss additional earnest money, if that comes into play. Now, I'd say additional earnest money is not typically coming into play in this type of a market, but in a buyer's market, it will come into play. And I've written so many contracts over the years when the market wasn't as strong for sellers that included additional earnest money. We're upside down. Let's show you this over here. Where is it? Woo. Additional earnest money. All right, check will be payable to the escrow agent. Now, you notice on there, no later than 5 p.m. on blank. On a certain day, you got to stipulate when you hand the offer to the seller exactly when that additional earnest money will be delivered and deposited. So what's typically done, although it's not required, it is definitely not set in stone. Like I said, a million ways, this could play out a million different ways or more. Typically, what I will encourage my buyers to do, or talk to my sellers and say this is reasonable, is let's say you want to wait until after the due diligence period has expired and the buyer can no longer walk away, so that they are locked in and they must perform, meaning they must buy the house. That is when you want to make that additional earnest money due and payable. So let's say your due diligence time frame ends on September 15th of 2020. We're making this video in 2020. You would probably want to make that money due, maybe the next day. It could be the same day. It could be the 16th that additional earnest money will be due, because again, that's the purpose of this earnest money, is to make sure the buyer doesn't walk away or do anything funny. And at that point, once the due diligence time frame has expired, they are going to have to buy that property no matter what. There's no question in there at all. So that is a logical place in which to make the additional earnest money due. So that's basically what I wanted to go over in this video, how these things work and the purpose of earnest money, EMDs. If you have any questions, by all means, put them down below. If you like these bills behind me, let me know. This is the cash money. That's why I've got it on here. This is the encouragement for a buyer and a seller to get this transaction done, right? That's what earnest money is about. And then I've seen and heard of many times where there's been a problem, and the problem usually is that the buyer doesn't want to perform. The buyer doesn't want to do what they're supposed to do. And in that case, don't think, oh, it's easy, we just won't give them the money back. Sometimes these buyers will fight for it. Sometimes they will threaten you. All kinds of things have been known to happen. Just because you're a seller, don't think that you can just take that money, nothing's going to happen. Just like with anything, there's always a price, right? There's always a cost. So you may have to fight this as a seller. You may have to endure ridicule or who knows what as a seller to keep the earnest money, or nothing. I've seen many, many cases over the years where a buyer just walked away for whatever reason, and sometimes they convey that to the seller, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they convey the reason out of sympathy to get the seller to understand and give me my earnest money back, please. But lots of times I've seen it where the buyer will walk away for whatever reason they have, and the seller just keeps the earnest money, and that's that. They don't even ask for it because they know they're not going to get it, or they ask once, and the seller says, nope, sorry, we're not returning that because you left. You decided not to buy the house after the due diligence expired. And even if it's during the due diligence, they could probably hold out, but they don't have much of a case. I can tell you that. Although I'm not an attorney, I would say that most judges would probably be very, very suspicious as to why a seller would want to keep an earnest money deposit during the due diligence time frame if it hadn't expired yet and they walked away. But after that, almost for certain, but again, none of this is for certain, but almost for certain, that money will be kept by the seller if the buyer walks away. So thank you so much for watching. You have any topics you want to hear about on real estate, please let me know below in the comments. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I will give you my direct mobile, which is 240-205-0417. You can text me, you can call me, give me your real estate questions, anything you have about the market. You're looking to buy or sell, of course, I'd love to help you. We even have a new program where we'll instantly buy your home, or at least when you want to, within a few weeks' time. You don't even have to put it on the market, you don't have to fix anything. We've got that new non-market instant buy program we offer through Mike Young Real Estate. So let me know about that. And of course, hopefully you guys are in Wake Forest and Raleigh community information, lots of the other groups. Go to trianglegrapevine.org and click on groups. You can join all the ones of interest. And we hope to see you in the next video. And thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, everybody.